Welcome back, everybody. Are you ready for more? I know I am. With his legs bouncing up and down in excitement, he slid the drum magazine into the shotgun and worked the action to load a shell. He pulled his suit's tail onto his lap and stroked both it and the shotgun. "Just be sure not to fire that thing right next to me," warned Stankoff. Nick leaned around the cockpit door to check on the rest of the team. His night vision goggles shifted awkwardly on his head, threatening to slide off of his greasy hair. "The island just showed up on radar. We're getting close." He fell back into his seat, once again needing to adjust the crotch of his spandex Sam Fisher costume. His black trench coat helped hide how strained the fabric had become around his waist, but he was uncomfortably aware of how some of the stitching had torn when he zipped it all the way up. The plane wobbled slightly as Ian Sell reached up and flicked a switch labeled transponder before he had to readjust the sleeve of his camouflaged MIL spec kimono. "We should be over the presidential palace in 15 minutes. Get ready to drop." Dankov checked his new FN Scar 17 assault rifle, then pulled a parachute on. After adjusting the straps over his own chute, he turned to help Nishi. The bulkier beard was already red in the face, simply having pulled the straps on over his shoulders, like a backpack, and fastened the upper chest strap over his moobs. "Don't you want to put on the leg straps, dude?" "No. My arms are thick enough. I don't think I'll need them. Besides, it's only a short drop. We'll be in the air for like a minute." Dankov shrugged and helped Ford fasten the lower chest strap on his body armor. "Ooh, feels like Daddy putting Weesh on me." Ugh. He finished the costume by putting on his cartoon cat's head and tucking into the upper part of his suit. He awkwardly bent over and felt around for his auto shotgun, working the sling over the mask of the head and draping it over his chest, then pulling on his hind paws. "I can see the lights of the town. I'm lining us up with the brightest lights I can see. We'll be over the palace in a minute." Nick squeezed past them and donned his own parachute and stood ready by the hatch. Crossing his arms, he addressed the rest of the team. "Each of us are badasses. Pure, unadulterated badasses. The very best there is. When you absolutely, positively gotta kill everyone in the room, except those substitutes. When we get down there, the foxes are gonna tear the shit out of the chickens." He paused while the team turned and grinned at one another, exchanging high fives. "Try to land on the taller buildings with the rooftop access so we can clear them top to bottom. We'll rally on the ground and rush the objective. And don't jump too early, or you'll have to walk the rest of the way there." Dante flipped through a stack of paintings of himself, each one more and more disturbing than the last. The final painting, which depicted Dante with blackened features and a violent slash of yellow across his face, was the most disturbing of all. Alpha, Payne, and two other ex-American operators stood outside the presidential palace, illuminated by the ring of searchlights pointed into the night sky. They beheld 150 soldiers spread out before them. Standing beneath Dante's quarters were 35 red berets, with their faces painted a fearsome black and yellow. They formed a semicircle around the palace entrance. Alpha and Payne eyed one another as they tried to mentally compute the surreal and unnerving sight. General Dante's outline appeared on the balcony, cigar smoke drifting like a ghost in the dead night air. The cabin was filled with a rushing torrent of air as soon as Nick opened the hatch. He clipped on the jump line and the other beards followed suit, all four men in stoic silence, peering out the hatch and the adjacent windows, looking for a prime spot to jump. "Bail out!" screamed Ian as he ran past the others and leapt out the hatch. They watched in stunned silence for a moment until he pulled the ripcord of his chute and began his graceful descent into the sleeping town below. He was followed quickly by Dankov and Nick, each whose parachutes deployed as their ripcords were pulled by the plane's jump line. Nietzsche shuffled hesitantly up to the edge of the hatch, the rushing air wiping the sweat and grease from his forehead. To encourage his friend, Ford placed a paw on either side of his buttocks and goosed him a little. Nietzsche arched his back in surprise and tumbled out of the plane. Sipping on a glass of whiskey, General Dante brooded behind his desk. He idly touched the barrel of a miniature cannon that had been a gift from the previous president, as Alpha and Payne entered the room. His room was lit by an extensive candlelight. Some of the other candles were immense, standing over 6 feet tall. Payne stepped forward cautiously. Downstairs, I saw soldiers with painted faces. So is there a reason you've taken the men I busted my ass to train to be serious combat personnel and painted them up to look like fucking juggalos? They look like warriors, roared Dante, throwing his glass at Payne. They look like morons. Warriors, loyal to me, Dante said, looking at the guards around the room. When does the battle begin? Alpha's eyes shifted quickly from man to man throughout the room. Battle? There isn't going to be any battle. Everything's under control. We dealt with the American mercenaries. Perhaps from your side of the room, maybe. From this side, nothing is under control. I can see you thinking, or the general is not thinking right. That could be. But it is also you that is not thinking right, and I can see you want to go and not see me again until morning. The general took up his brush and palette. No. Stay. I would prefer company. You will watch me paint. Several red berets moved to block the exit, clearly ready to fight. Alpha glared at Dante, who stared blankly back into his eyes, tapping his brush against the palette. It had been touch and go for a few moments after leaving the plane, but Ford had managed to keep his fursuit's head in place. He had gotten a hold of the steering straps on his parachute and turned to watch the plane slowly diving towards the city. He had not seen Nietzsche's chute deploy seconds after leaving the plane, nor had he seen the chute immediately pull Nietzsche's arm straight above his head, slipping the straps off of his shoulders and letting him free fall into the houses below. Not that the parachute would have saved him anyway. He had not bothered to check the weight limit on the T-11 parachute, or would have known it tops out at 400 pounds. With his fursuit's head in place, Ford couldn't hear the crash of his compatriot smashed through the ceramic tile roof below. Ready or not, General Dante, here we come! Chapter 11. Dante's eyes bored into the canvas. His final brushstrokes revealed an image of his daughter, rushing past a burning landscape. He had set the brush and palette to one side and asked aloud, Do you have puppets at home? Alpha, who had been slowly turning a gold-plated lighter over and over in his fingers, looked up at him. What? Dante picked up a rag to wipe his hands and continued. No, but you think you have one here in front of you. Do you think I am a puppet? No, that's just in your mind. Dante dropped the rag. Is it? He stared hard at Alpha. Slamming his hands down on the desk, Alpha leapt to his feet. I want you to calm the fuck down. With a look of madness in his eyes, the general shouted back, You want! Followed by a laugh. He turned to his soldiers in Spanish. He wants! Sweat was beading on Alpha's forehead now as he tried to maintain composure. In a low growl, he replies, I'm trying real hard to figure out what the hell's going on with you right now. Dante is now pacing the room, weaving between the candles, and launching into a monologue. You're in there. I thought maybe the people of Villena paid those mercenaries to kill me. I thought that. But then I think maybe this is your plan, because you can't control me. Then I think torturing my daughter works for you. I feel it. But she is now loyal to me, and you want to kill her to make her suffer. Bitter sacrifice. We know a man can never kill a child. He spun around to level an accusing finger at Alpha. But you can. You are losing your mind. I have never felt more free. Candles and pens clattered to the floor as Alpha furiously swept them off the desk and then slammed his hands flat on the weather-worn surface. I own you. Dante's red berets stepped forward, holding their weapons at the ready. In the flickering candlelight, they presented a terrifying vision. Nobody controls me. No more. Bring my daughter here. Bring her. She knows who is doing this. Bring her now. Bring her in front of me, and I will ask her if she is loyal to you or to me. Two red guards swiftly saluted and rushed into the hall. General Dante once again wove his way through the candles strewn about the floor towards his desk, seemingly ready to unleash another tirade on the Americans. when all of a sudden the whole place shook with a terrific explosion. Through the balcony entrance, they could clearly see a huge swath of hillside burning in the night, where the plane had crashed. All parties stood dumbstruck for a moment before Payne ran to the balcony and began shouting orders to the men gathered in the courtyard below. Hurriedly, the soldiers loaded into jeeps and trucks and rolled out of the courtyard towards the inferno. Gravel stung Nick's ass cheek as he skidded to a halt in a parking lot. After detangling himself from his parachute, he flipped down his night vision goggles and did a slow pan of his surroundings, checking for enemies nearby. Satisfied that his landing had gone undetected, he pulled out his phone and tried to start a Discord call. The small icon spun and spun, but it failed to connect. He frowned and tried again. Still, the app would not work. He tapped his Bluetooth earpiece and dialed Dankoff. To his dismay, his phone displayed a message reading, "No service." Drawing his P99 pistol with a suppressor, he made his way to the corner of the nearest building and looked around, took off down the street in search of his teammates, or enemies to kill. Dankoff surveyed the trucks leaving the palace from his vantage point on top of a small apartment building. He had rolled up his chute into a bundle and was now using it to support his rifle as he used the scope to count the number of troops and trucks. It looked like they were splitting up. Some headed uphill directly towards the fire, while another headed downhill away from it. He shrugged it off as the small fish and sighted his rifle on the one of the lead trucks, squeezing off a few rounds in rapid succession, watching for hits. We're actually over time, so we'll find out what happens in the next episode. Thank you all for watching. If you're enjoying this, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to keep the lights on in here, you could donate to Patreon or buy something from the merch store. If you have your own story, send it to r/Moonhorse Stories, and I'll see it there. There's a stream every Saturday, and maybe I'll see you there. I love you all so very, very much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.